So March 26th is Epilepsy Awareness Day. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder that causes seizures in the brain due to misfires. April 20th of 2016, my dad found me in my room after I had had a seizure, but at the time they didn't know it was a seizure. My dad honestly thought I was in cardiac arrest because I had the post-ictal state, which is what they call after you have a seizure. So you kind of foam at the mouth afterwards and you've bitten your tongue when you have a seizure. And they call 911. I get to the hospital, they have no idea what's going on yet. Bunch of tests later, then they tell me, hey, you have epilepsy. And my first question was, can I still play softball? That was the first thing I asked. And she said yes, but I knew from then on, so I was 16 at the time, that my life was going to change forever. My second one was in July of that year. We kind of didn't know if mine was going to be a reoccurring thing or if it was going to be a once thing, because sometimes people have one and then they never have one again. So we didn't know. Then July comes around and I have another one. And we didn't really know what to do after that. Go to see another neurologist, they up my medication, and it's just been a constant battle of upping medications. I mean, I've been on 5 or 6 at a time. From there on out, I knew that that was how it was going to be. So I had the one in July. I didn't have another one until I got to college. That was my junior year of high school. I got to college. My freshman year, I had a 9-minute seizure. And really, my life did change after that. August 22nd of 2022, I remember getting up that morning. I had to go film something with a coworker. So I'm doing my hair with a hot brush where you can kind of give yourself a blowout. And then the last thing I remember saying was, oh no. And I guess right after that is when I had the seizure. When you're in the post-ictal state, you're not really sure what's going on. You aren't really there. You remember bits and pieces. And every time that I'm in that state, I'm crying because I feel like I know what happened, but I also am just confused because you're in this weird state. And I looked at my arm right here and I had a big blister. I didn't know it was a blister at the time. I thought it was a cut. And I remember sending a picture to my mom and she says, that looks like a blister. And I'm like, a blister from what? Okay, you know. The first thing I do is go to urgent care because I didn't know it was burn at the time. I'm like, okay, they'll take a look at it. And they're like, there's nothing we can do for you. I mean, one of the women at urgent care started crying because she's like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. So then they were like, you need to go to the ER. So I go to the ER and there's not a burn unit anywhere near Eastern North Carolina on this side. You have to go to Chapel Hill, which is the closest one. So they put me in an ambulance, send me to Chapel Hill, and they say if we don't get it cleaned up and everything, you're going to go into like septic shock from the infection because they're so open and there's so many. They send me to Chapel Hill, their burn unit, really quick. I was there for a week. The day after I got there, they had me go into surgery. I didn't know if I was going to have to do a skin graft where they take part out of your thigh most of the time and put it over there. They didn't know how much skin I had lost. So luckily I didn't have to do that. They took me into surgery, stitched everything up, and I feel like the hardest part about that, obviously being in the hospital, was hard. But from there on out, I had to wear a wrap here and a wrap here. So I really I couldn't wear normal clothes to work because I couldn't wear anything normal. Everything was bulky, and then I'm having to change this wrap 3 times a day, every single day. And so I think that changed me a little bit into the person I am now because I kind of am thankful for the opportunities I have now. Now I get to look like a normal person from the outside. Now, when I see it, am I still in shock and know that my body has changed forever? Yeah, but from what I hear from a lot of other people, they say I can't see it. Before I had my first seizure, I didn't have a license yet, even though I was 16. I was so busy with travel softball, I never had time. So I had just taken driver's ed literally that February or March of that year. And so then I had the seizure and I hadn't had my permit for enough period of time for me to go get a license. You have to go 6 months seizure free before you can drive. Obviously I've made it there before, but that was never my first priority, was driving. And so then unfortunately one time I did drive a car by myself and it was my friend's car and I had a seizure driving it and wrecked her car and I ended up in the hospital. And I talk about moments that have changed me as a person, but that was definitely one of them. I think it was maybe the urge of, I just want to know what it's like to drive a car. And that might sound silly from people knowing, Courtney, you can't do that. Now, being 24, almost 25, I haven't driven a car since. And so, without a permit, you can't drive, but with a license, you can drive. Now I just have an ID. But since I'm over 18, I can't go get a permit. So these are the kind of things that are behind the scenes with epilepsy that people don't think about. I have to go around all these hoops, like how can I drive? For normal people who can drive and get behind the wheel of a car and go wherever they need to at any time, I order my groceries through Instacart and somebody brings them to my apartment there, which is really convenient for me and people like me that could be in my situation or just can't drive. A lot of people ask me, how do you get to work every day? And I have 2 coworkers that religiously will pick me up. And they never tell me that they can't take me anywhere I need to go. The store, or to work, or from work, or to the doctor. I mean, I've just been blessed with coworkers all throughout the newsroom, but there are 2 that I could not be more thankful for. I'll always joke about, I don't have to pay for gas or car insurance, and it's like, okay, but sometimes I have to pay for Uber, which is rare. There's a lot of behind the scenes with epilepsy that people don't consider. And as somebody who lives with it, when they told me I was diagnosed, my first thought was, what is that? I have no idea. So when somebody asks me these questions, I never want somebody to feel afraid to ask me those questions, because I didn't know. How am I going to expect other people to know? Along with the not being able to drive comes the medication. And the medication can mess you up in so many different ways to where you can't do things. My neurologist told me I can't have caffeine anymore. Some people can't eat certain things anymore. For me, my biggest one is sleep deprivation, which can also be hard being 24 with a job and you want to have a social life and whatever else. You have to try so hard to get good sleep all the time when you have so much going on. Stress was another big one for me. It's not as much, but it's definitely in there. It is a common neurological disorder, but there's a lot that people say, well, what is it? What all goes into it? So I hope that it brings awareness to it. Things such as you can't swallow your tongue. A lot of people think when someone has a seizure, you can. You can't. Epilepsy is not contagious. It's not contagious. If you know the person is epileptic, don't call 911. Put them on their side, set a timer for 5 minutes. If it goes over 5 minutes, call an ambulance. Send them to the hospital. If it doesn't, just let them have the seizure. Don't put anything in their mouth. Don't put your fingers in their mouth to stop them from biting their tongue, because they will bite your finger. I feel like those are just the things I want to bring awareness to, is the safety side of it. Obviously, there are things that play into it that people without epilepsy might not know about, but really just the surface level is where you have to start.